Hey, I'm at an RV campground in the state of Colorado. And what I wanted to draw your attention to are the old phone booths. The payphone. The era is over. And as you can see, this is one of the old-time coin deposit payphones. There may be a whole generation out there that has no idea what these are. But back in the day, before cell phones, the only access you had to communicate was by telephone. And you had a telephone in your home, and if you were out traveling and you were fortunate, you might find what they call a payphone. Now this payphone is missing the handpiece that you put up to your ear and your mouth, the receiver and the place where you talk. So we don't see that here. Obviously it was cut off and taken away. But the idea is that you come to the payphone to communicate with someone, and you do this by taking your coins and put them in the coin slot. And then after you put them in the coin slot, you get a dial tone, and you dial your phone number with the push buttons. And the really old ones had a rotary system, but you push your numbers for the phone number that you're trying to reach. And then the operator would come on and say, to make this call you need to deposit, and then she will give you, or he will give you, the correct amount then to add even more coins into the payphone. And then once you deposit those coins into the payphone, you can begin to talk. And possibly while you're talking, now remember, this little cable here comes out further and has a handheld device you put up against your ear, and then you can speak into it. So it's missing that. But once you begin to talk, it is possible you could be interrupted. And you might be interrupted by the telephone operator saying, for the next 3 minutes, please deposit 50 cents. And you're given a warning about 30 seconds. For the next 3 minutes, please deposit 50 cents. Now, if you don't deposit the 50 cents, the line will go dead. Your call will be over. In other words, it was a money-eating monster that, based on the location of where you were trying to call and how long you wanted to talk, would be the amount that was needed to deposit into the machine here, or the payphone. Now there's another thing you can do if you come to a payphone, or if you came to a payphone. I'm putting it in the past tense because they're all pretty well gone. I don't know of any more that are in operation. But you could do what's called call collect. And that would be that you pick up your receiver speaker and put it to your ear and mouth, and after you deposit, say 25 cents or 10 cents to get the initial dial tone, you could dial O for operator. Boop. And the operator would come on, and you would say, I would like to make a collect call to, and then you give the phone number. And the operator would call that number, and then the other party that you're trying to reach, the operator would say, you have a collect call from, and then they would state the name of the individual at the payphone booth. Will you accept the charges? So the other person on the end of the line would then say, yes, I will accept the charges. Now, if they did not accept the charges, it was over. You're not going to talk to that person. Now, if you're in this payphone and you're waiting, you have no idea what the operator just said to that individual. But you're waiting, and she'll come back on and say your call can now be processed, or might not even say anything, and then all of a sudden you're speaking to the individual that you are trying to reach, and hence the cost of that particular conversation would then be attributed to or placed on the bill of the individual that you called collect. Now, in the event that things are not right and you feel you've been cheated or you're not getting a dial tone, you press this button here called coin release. And then you come down here to this and you get out your quarter or your dime or whatever you feel you've been cheated. Now, occasionally phones didn't function, and so you called the operator and said, I just put in $2.50 and it ate my money. And the operator could, from off in a distance somewhere, actually activate this coin release, and then all of a sudden you hear ching-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching, and then your coins would come out here. Again, it would have been possibly the operator that could release the coins somehow if you were unable to get those coins released. Now, another thing is the old phone directory, and that would be located right here. You can see it right there. So what you would do if you didn't know who you were trying to reach, it looks pretty yucky. But anyhow, you would pull it up like this. And then you would look up the name of the individual. Starting with their last name. And then you could find the telephone number on this phone directory. This one suffered through quite a bit, obviously, and this is kind of a lesson in history for those who are younger and have no idea about a payphone. Now, this is an outdoor payphone, which means it's not inside a building, and you can see it's not really enclosed. However, sometimes if you were to use a payphone in a building, all of this would be enclosed, and it would create a booth, a little structure that you go into and close the door, and you have a relative degree of privacy. And they would call it a payphone booth. And then you could talk to your other party relatively free of noise and distractions around you. Now, if life was busy and you had several people that wanted to use the phone, at this particular location, there was another one on the other side. So someone could be talking in that location where I was just at, and then someone could be over here also talking. This one doesn't have as much information on it as the other one. Obviously someone's either taken that away, but here you are telling you how to reach an operator, calling collect, and so forth. So just for fun, I'm going to push the coin release, see if there's any coins in it. So that one has a spring operation in it. It's pretty good. Now if there were any coins in there, they would come out there. Now when I was growing up, payphone booths were scattered throughout different locations. And one of the things I'd like to do as a youth, I would come to the payphone and just simply push the coin release and see if there was anything in there. And occasionally there actually would be some coins in there. And back in my days, when I was a youth, I believe the earliest recollection I have was the cost of a payphone local call was a nickel. Then it went to a dime, 10 cents. So that gives you a little idea of my age. And now the age that we're living in, which is almost 100% dominated by the usage of cell phones. And the old, what they call landlines, are becoming very obsolete. In fact, many folks do not even have a landline anymore. And that transition was a big transition in America as well. To go from the usage of what they call landline telephones to cell phones, cell phone usage. Now, I'm going to just try to break down a word for you. And I didn't look it up, I'm just using my memory. But telephone would be two words. Phone, hearing, and also teleos, or distance, or purpose, or off in a distance. So you might say, sort of like a telephone is being able to hear someone off in a distance. Basically, this was just sort of an educational video for those who absolutely have no idea about payphones and landlines. And I know there's a whole generation out there that really has no clue about what life was like for older folks like me. In fact, just to go back to my life, when I grew up, in my house we had one phone, one landline, and no additional receivers anywhere. So there was just one phone, and it was in the hallway. And when that one phone rang, we actually were excited. Somebody was calling us. And we couldn't wait to answer it, to see who it was. It was like a game. It was like a surprise. Like, wow, somebody's calling you on the telephone. Now, what has happened today is that many people ignore the telephone. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One reason is of telemarketers wanting to sell you something. Now, another reason is that basically a lot of people today just don't want to be bothered talking to someone. And we're now in a day and age where talk and conversation is at a minimum. And I'm going to come up with a video about the transition to the usage of images for communication and not the usage of language anymore. So we're in transition. Many people do not want to be bothered talking on the phone. And human conversation, even on the phone, is getting scarce. Now, as you can see, not for me. I like to talk, and I like to talk to people on the phone, and I like to talk to them face to face, which is the best form of communication. Face to face. But if you don't have face to face, then telephone is really good. And probably what's even greater now is that you can use visual video and verbal audio with your Facebook, and the ability to make phone calls that now include actually seeing the individual, the image of the individual on your cell phone along with their voice. So it is quite amazing, the pathway of technology and how far we've come in life with technology. But what concerns me is that it's like a double standard. It's like, oh, it's so great, and yet it's ruined a lot of lives. And the reason is, I think it's ruined a lot of lives is basically people don't want to be bothered anymore. They don't want to be bothered with talking. They don't want to be bothered with what I would call actual communication. Instead, they just want to send you images. And I'm going to come up with a video on that a little bit later. A quotation I came across from a French scholar called Jacques Ellul, and he basically really nailed this. How people today now just want images, and they don't really want verbal communication, let alone face-to-face communication. So that's why people want to send you cute little things, that a picture they took with absolutely no text or no verbal. They want to send you some cute little thing they picked up off the internet. And I understand it. And a little tiny bit of it is okay with me, but hey, in my book, which nobody really pays much attention to, my book, good old face-to-face communication cannot and will not ever be beat or replaced. And secondly, good old talking to somebody on the telephone, either just audio or even audio with visual, is absolutely next in line. So I'd like to thank you for watching this. Nothing here of the world, strange world in which we live in, except just sort of an educational video for any younger person who basically has no idea about the olden days with payphones. So if you're by a payphone somewhere, you might want to make a video, because eventually this thing will be torn down and even the historical remnants of it will be gone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. End of video.